So glad that you all can join us today. Welcome. This is the immigration information session for maintaining your F1 status for spring 2024. My name is John Hildebrand. I'm the manager of International Student Advising Services here at CSU. And I'm here with my team. We've got a wonderful team of advisors here that are going to present some information to you. And then we'll have some time for you to ask questions and have your questions answered. So we'll have about maybe 10 to 15 minutes of information to present to you, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions. This is a great opportunity for you to clarify anything that you're maybe not sure about. If you have questions having gone through some of the information we've sent already, it's a great opportunity for you to ask those questions. You can do that by using the Q&A function. So if you go down to the bottom of the screen and click on Q&A, you can submit your questions there. Please do that, and then we will either answer them. We'll have some advisors answer them either via the chat or the Q&A function, or we'll answer them live for you. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to my colleagues Rochelle and Laura, who are going to lead the information section.
Thanks, John. Hi, I'm Rochelle Breen. In English, my pronouns are they, them, and I'll be one of the folks starting a presentation. My colleague Laura is also here. Laura, do you want to say hi?
Good morning and welcome, everybody. My name is Laura Arcila. Nice to meet you.
Excellent. Thank you. And we're going to start with a presentation. It's going to be pretty short. But we want to go over just a few helpful reminders. John, if you could take it to the slide with the Canvas module. There we go. So just a reminder, if you haven't yet, you should have gotten an email reminding you to do the Canvas immigration course. You'll do only the F1 student section. J1s are going to do theirs separately. So just a reminder, if you haven't done that, to go through that. It goes into much more detail about some of the things that we'll talk about today, as well as some other things that we're not probably going to have time to talk about. If you can take us to slide 4 now. It's got a bunch of thumbs downs. We're doing something a little bit different this time by trying to highlight the things that can go wrong, because we don't want this to happen to you. So we want to make sure that you're paying attention to the ways that things can go wrong. This isn't hypothetical. This has happened to many students. Pretty much every semester, there's at least some people in this category. And we never want students to be in this situation. But there are some really preventable ways that students get kicked out of the US. The word that we use in our office is terminate, because what we have to do is end the F1 record. So we terminate the F1 record, and so you can see this is kind of how we'll talk about it. We'll say your immigration record has been terminated, or it will be terminated. Take those things seriously. But this is how those things happen. No one plans for this to happen, but maybe they drop below full time. And it is often because maybe a class isn't going so well and they think, oh, I need to avoid my GPA dropping because of a bad grade, so I'll just drop the course. But if they're dropping below full time, that's a violation of F1 status that's going to force us to terminate the record. So full time for undergraduate students is 12 credits. Full-time for graduate students is 9 credits, unless you're in a special program that has something different, but you would know if you're in that category. So 9 for graduate students. For place students, this is 18 contact hours. And then in addition to that, primarily everything that you're doing should be in person. There's high restrictions on what amount of online enrollment can count towards your full-time course load. So contact us if you have questions about how to arrange that for yourself. And then there are a few circumstances when someone can be permitted to drop below full time, but they're quite rare, honestly. So we'll get into a little bit more of best practices with this, but the kind of takeaway here is RCL, which is the permission to drop below. It's called reduce course load or reduce credit load. That comes in writing from our office in the form of an approval of something that you first submit to us. This is never going to be over the phone. You're not going to get this permission over the phone. So make sure that you have it in writing before dropping below full-time. The second reason why some students will get kicked out of the US is because they fail to enroll. And you might think, oh, well, this isn't going to happen to me. But the way this unfolds is typically one of two ways. One, someone's grades drop so low that they get dismissed from the university. The university says, we have a minimum here, and your GPA is dropped below that point. You're not able to bring it up. We're not going to let you continue at CSU. So take your grades seriously, take your studies seriously, and hopefully that can be avoided. The other way that this unfolds is if someone is unable to pay off their financial bill to the university and the next semester starts and there's a financial hold preventing them from registering for classes. That's when someone is not going to be able to enroll, and that's why their record is going to get terminated. So make sure you're able to pay off your bills to the university. Talk to us if you need help with that. Not that we can really pay those for you. They tend to be pretty large, but take those estimated expenses seriously. The next reason that someone's record might get terminated and they get kicked out of the US is because they work without proper authorization. So someone might misunderstand the internship that they're doing and think that they're getting permission over the phone. It's always going to go on your I-20. If it's CPT, which is curricular practical training, so internship, this is a type of work authorization, it'll be on the I-20. If it's OPT, optional practical training, which comes after graduation, it'll be on the I-20. And so the other form of work that's most common is on-campus work authorization. You don't have to get anything special about this. It's just, up to 20 hours a week on campus. You do need a social security number. We'll get into that in a little bit, but just make sure that you understand the work authorization requirements for what kind of work you're planning on doing, and always talk to us if you're not sure about something. The last thing that I'm going to talk about might seem really broad, but it's students have ended up in really bad situations because they failed to check their email. We've seen it before where a student has failed to check their email for more than a year, and in that period of time their record was terminated and they just didn't know. So they were staying in the US illegally for an entire year and not doing anything about it. So by the time they came to us, we'd already sent many warnings, and then finally it was a termination, and there was very little we could do to help them. At that point in time, it was pretty serious. So I'll give you a little bit of information right now about what kinds of emails we'll send you. You'll get a weekly programming information newsletter from us. This will have cool information, maybe some useful information, but primarily it's about making sure that you're connected to campus and connected to others here. We don't want you to feel lonely or isolated. Every 2 weeks, we'll also send you a newsletter with timely reminders about your F1 status, reminding you to get a travel signature before the break, or if you know that you're going to need an RCL next semester, request that permission to drop below full-time now instead of waiting until the last minute. And then every once in a while, we'll send you one-off emails just saying, oh, hey, we're going to be closed unexpectedly on this one day, so we won't be holding open advising at that time, for example. Beyond that, pretty much everything that you receive, if you receive something from us, will be specifically directed to you. So if you get something that says, hey, warning, you're at low enrollment and your record will be terminated, take it seriously. Don't just think it's going to go away. Take action on it as soon as you can. Definitely remember to check your emails. And now I'm going to turn it over to Laura. John will need to go back one slide. Thanks.
Thanks, Rochelle. Well, good morning again, everybody, or good day or good evening. So I am going to just talk about these 5 key points to stay or maintain your immigration status in the US. So the first thing, and Rochelle was making some reference to that a while ago, is just plan to take a full course of study every semester. So if you are an undergraduate student, that means 12 credits. If you are a graduate student, that means 9. And if you are a place student doing English, then it is 18 to 21. And really that is the main purpose of your being in the US. Summer is not required unless it is your very last semester in your program. And as Rochelle was indicating before, if there is a situation where you believe you have a reason to be enrolled for less than that first course load, then you do need to request authorization. You need to contact our office and request what is called an RCL. That stands for Reduced Credit Load. These are really exceptions for the rule of maintaining a full course of study. So they are highly specific. They may be based on some academic or medical reasons, but you need to contact us for further information about that if you believe that you need one of those. And you need to do that before you actually drop a course or before the deadlines for registering pass, so that you have the proper authorization for reducing your full-time credit load. The second key point to keep in mind is always to make normal progress towards the degree. And we are putting that in quotation marks because that's the expression that is actually in the regulations, in the US Code of Federal Regulations. It is law. So really what making normal progress means, I cannot find a better way of explaining that than by saying, well, every semester that you are here, you're getting closer towards completing the requirements of your program, either because you take courses that are now out of the way, or you are advancing your research, but you are getting closer and closer as time goes by towards completing all the requirements towards the degree. This normal progress, I want to say, is not about not having setbacks occasionally. It is about getting closer towards completing your degree. We have a person here on board, and you will be getting an email from her. Her name is Lisa Papas, and she works in the area of international success and retention. If you ever in your career here feel that normal progress is getting difficult, that there are some difficulties you're facing, you're always welcome to reach out, especially to Lisa, of course to our office as well, but especially to Lisa for assistance with that, or simply for a friendly ear and some advice. The third key point is to know and follow the rules that have to do with working while you are in the United States. So as I said before, really the main purpose of your stay on F1 status is to learn, is to get a degree of some sort that you are doing here, unless you are a place student. The work, the way it is viewed from the point of view of immigration is something that complements your training program. It's not the first or the main purpose for you being here. And so there are rules about that restrict, especially working off campus. So for on-campus work, and this is work in the premises of the university, or working on services, on institutions, organizations on campus that serve students. Students are able to do on-campus work for up to 20 hours a week, which is the definition of part-time. Anything beyond that is considered full-time, and it is not permitted on campus unless the school is not in session. So that means during the summer and the winter breaks, students are allowed to work for more than 20 hours a week on campus. And in neither of those cases, part-time on-campus job or full-time on-campus work during the breaks, you don't need a special authorization. But anything beyond that, that is off-campus, has to be formally authorized. That covers curricular practical training, optional practical training, extensions on that for people on STEM fields, internships that are going to be paid even if they are required in your curriculum. There are programs here that require students to do internships while they are taking courses. All of that has to be authorized. And so you contact our office if you are in any of those situations, or if you are interested in off-campus work at the end of your program. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that if you are going to be working in any form of campus or on campus in the US, you need a social security number. And that is so that you can be paid and that your income can be tracked for tax purposes. And in that case, you need to contact our office to get a special letter that you need to take to the Social Security Administration in town. You have to go there in person. So to get that letter, you contact us, but just be aware that you need to have that employment offer in writing before you request the letter from us, because we have to include that information on the letter that we issue for your Social Security. The fourth point is to make sure that your I-20 and your passport are valid throughout your studies in the US. In fact, you are supposed to have a valid passport that is valid always for a period of 6 months while you are here. On that note, I highly recommend that you get familiar with the closest consular office or embassy general for consular general or embassy from your country, so that you know what the requirements, the timeline, the process is should you need to renew or get a new passport. And I recommend that as opposed to waiting at the last until the last minute. We've had some stories of students who have done that, and then at the end of the day are having real difficulty getting to a consulate that is very far away. Maybe they don't have transportation. Maybe they can only get an appointment while the school is in session, so they'd be missing classes. So it's always good to kind of know before this happen what the process is, the requirements, and so on, so that you maintain that passport valid throughout your stay. And then with your I-20, same thing. If you look, and you can do that now at your I-20, it has on the first page of the I-20, it says, it has a program end date there. We usually give students plenty of time beyond the predicted normal time for completing the program. And so it is important to periodically to be aware of your I-20's expiration. And should you need any additional time to complete your program, to contact our office at least 1 month ahead before the I-20 expire, so that we can process an extension for you. But there is a process to that. There is paperwork involved, so at least 1 month ahead of time. The other point about the I-20 is that it should be accurate in terms of the program information. If you change your program for any reason, just contact us so that we can update that information on your I-20. You don't need, we're talking about immigration documents, passport, I-20, you don't need a valid US visa to remain in the US. The visa is only like an entry ticket a permit to enter the country. But once you are here, what controls your ability to stay legally in the US is really the I-20. So you all would have entered on an I-94 that says D/S, which stands for duration of a status, meaning you can stay here for as long as you are maintaining full-time enroll in your program of studies and for as long as that I-20 is valid. And the last point, talk to us when you need assistance or guidance. We are always here. We have open advising, which is like you just come in, you don't need an appointment. We have that Monday through Thursday from 10 to 11 and from 1 to 3 p.m. We also have advising by appointment, and we have email, isss@colostate.edu. You can always send us an email with your name, your student number, and your question. I also want to say, just lastly, that there is a very useful resource. If you Google ISSS forms Colostate, there is a directory of forms that are very, commonly used for all kinds of paperwork, including that Social Security letter request. And so that is also something to keep in mind, that a lot of our the forms that we need for processing things for students are online. So I think I've covered the main key points. I hope you remember them. Wish you the best in your studies, and let's move on to the Q&A.
Right before we do that, just a quick note. F1 and other international students have been targeted for a lot of scams by phone, is usually how these scammers are reaching out. And they're specifically targeting folks in their native language sometimes. So like if you're from China, you might get a call from someone pretending to be from a Chinese police office and saying that something bad is going to happen to you or your family if you don't help them to get a bunch of money from you. It's not just China, but a lot of the cases have been from China. So if you get any kind of call where there's a figure of authority telling you something bad is going to happen to you, please reach out to us, or if you feel more comfortable, the police. But we've seen a lot of these cases, and it's really sad, and we don't want it to happen to you. So please reach out to us in that case. Q&A time! It looks like there have been some already answered. Thank you so much, John and Alan, for helping out. Folks can post their questions. Well, we're here.
Yes, please use the Q&A function to submit questions for us. We've got some time to be able to answer your questions now. While we're having students submit questions, I've got a question for you all. I'm curious, for students, if I'm an F1 student, do I need a new travel signature on my I-20 every time that I travel?
Not necessarily. It depends on when your travel happens, because if you're only traveling once every couple of years, you'll probably need a new one because the old one will have expired. Travel signatures for active students are valid for 12 months, but they are also valid for multiple entries. And so if you were traveling 3 times a year, at summer vacation, winter vacation, and maybe over spring break, then theoretically you could do that on one travel signature if that was all happening within 1 year, because they're valid for multiple entries. Good question.
I've got another question for you.
Go for it.
So I'm a student and I'm interested in working on campus. How do I start that process? I know you mentioned I need a social security number. How do I get that? Can you tell me a little bit more about how to start working on campus?
I'll grab the link. Lauda, do you want to answer the question?
Sure, thank you. So the first thing is once you, to look for jobs on campus, there are places like the Career Center, the cafeterias, the library, etc., where you can go and ask. But let's assume that you have been offered some job on campus. And so there, you can contact our office because you will need that social security letter. Now, to get that, and I believe that the link will be on the chat for you to look at, what we need is for you to visit us and bring your offer letter. If you seriously got a job on campus, they are going to give you a piece of paper that says that you they want to hire you, and it will have the name of the office on campus, and it will have your title, your position, your job. And so you bring that to us, and we will be able to prepare a letter that will have your identifying information and the name of the office on campus where you will be working, the address. And then with that, you will then go to the Social Security Administration in Fort Collins and just fill out an application for your Social Security. They will give you, this is very important, a piece of paper that indicates that you have applied for the number, and it will have the number. It will not be the actual Social Security card, but you can bring that piece of paper that you get at the administration. You bring that to your employer, and they will be able to formally appoint you, and you will be able to start working with that. You will receive the Social Security card in the mail some weeks after you have applied.
Great, thank you, Lara.
Sure.
Again, students, if you have any questions, please ask them now. You can use the Q&A function to submit your questions to us.
If it helps everyone feel comfortable like asking their questions, we used to do this session very differently. We used to essentially go through the whole orientation, and then we got feedback that that was obviously a bit repetitive. So we thought we'd take this time to really open it up to questions. And I'm so glad to see some now. I might take the first one, how to find jobs. Do I need to find it on Handshake, or should I personally visit them and ask for it? Handshake is, if you have access to Handshake now, that's a good place. That's probably the primary place, but it can't hurt to, especially if you're already in the US, once things open up. I know the Laurie Student Center is closed. I think they reopen on the 12th or the 14th. If someone knows the answer, feel free to tell me.
My understanding is they open on the 14th.
Okay, thank you. So it'll be hard to kind of get at some of the stuff that might be in the Laurie Student Center in terms of hiring. Handshake is probably going to make it the most easy and convenient for you. You could also approach the Career Center and say you're new and you're looking for, on-campus employment. Can they help you do that most efficiently? But yeah, if you have a specific place in mind, like, oh, I'd really like to work in the library, I want to see if they have any openings, or I really want to work, I am living in an on-campus dorm, I want to see if the dining hall has any places hiring. Those are probably the most common places that have like large numbers. Oh, maybe not the library, but certainly the dining halls tend to have large openings and turnover. Not saying that's a bad thing, it's just how the industry works. So yeah, Handshake is great, Career Center is great, going in person is also an option. Good question.
And Tanya asked a question here that I'll have you all answer. She says, in my I-20, the program end date is December 18th, 2026, which is longer than the course length. Can you please explain how this works?
Yeah, kind of like what Laura was saying about how we usually give students more time than they actually need to complete their program. We have pretty much a standard formula for all incoming new students, which is if they're on a master's program, we're going to give them 3 years on their I-20. If they're an undergraduate or a graduate degree, we'll give them 5 years. Because for most of those programs, that's plenty of time to get things done. And if there's a setback, like, oh, you unexpectedly have a medical issue that requires time off from school, or like a reduced course load, or you change majors, or your research is with animals, and animals are notoriously difficult to produce the work that you want when you want it, so things take longer than you anticipated. There's a little bit of flexibility in that 3 and 5 year period, so that you won't necessarily immediately have to jump to an extension. But of course, if it is going to take longer than that period of time, you'll need an extension. And if it's going to take shorter, just know what your program is actually going to end on, because we are going to go in once we get that report from the registrar's office saying, hey, this person's finished their degree, we're going to go in and shorten the I-20. So when you're thinking about your F1 status, you know when it's going to end. And so definitely think from that lens if it's going to happen sooner than the program end date. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. A few more questions here. One is about driver's licenses. So someone asks if they should get their driver's license in the first 3 months. Maybe could you just provide some recommendations for international students and driver's license?
Yeah, this is 3 months and 90 days is the information we've gotten when we've asked about this before to like the different driver's license offices. This is definitely what the driver's license office in Colorado says if you're new to the state, is to get it within the first 90 days. So it's not entirely clear to us if that's like specifically if someone's coming in from another country, they're not coming from another state, or if it's really only if you previously were at a different university in Maine and now you've transferred here, and so you need to transfer the driver's license that you had previously gotten in a different state. Certainly, if you're transferring driver's licenses from another state within the US, do get that done within the first 90 days of being in Colorado. But for other internationals, if you don't plan to drive, you don't need to get a driver's license. You can pursue a state ID if you would like. You don't necessarily have to go for a driver's license if you don't actually plan on driving.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. We've got another question here about administrative processing. They say my visa status is under administrative processing right now. My question is, in case my visa gets delayed and I need a deferral, do I need to register for courses for this semester?
No, you don't need to register for course. If you're deferring, what's going to happen is, and definitely communicate with our office yet. If you have not yet, definitely make sure that you communicate with us that you are planning to defer. I know you've still got some time, so you want to hold out. But if January 16th is coming around and you don't think you're going to get it, talk to our office. If you're going to defer, don't register for classes because you're not going to be able to attend them. And you're just going to be on the hook for a lot of money that's not actually counting towards your education. So no, you don't need to register. You'll just need to get a new I-20 though, showing the new program start date for the future semester. Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Great. The next question here, when is the DDL for course registration? I'm guessing that means deadline for course registration. I haven't finished my course registration yet, but it looks like January 17th is about to start.
So I'll note that classes actually start January 16th here, not the 17th. As soon as possible is what I would say. You don't want to show up and not be registered for courses if you are actually attending this spring. If you haven't yet gotten in touch with your academic advisor, that's going to be the first step for undergrads. For graduate students, I imagine there's probably some communication with your department that has happened. The deadline, it kind of depends on whether you're having visa issues or not. But I think census is typically, there are different deadlines. Sorry, that's why I don't have the information pulled up, but there are different deadlines. I think generally you want to make as many, whatever final changes as best as possible within the first week of classes, not only because then you're actually going to be able to succeed in the classes that you're enrolling in, right? If you've missed 1 week of class versus 2, but also that's the 100% tuition refund deadline if you think there's some classes that you're not going to need, you're going to take in a different semester. You won't be able to get 100% of your money back after that first week. But then beyond that, there are also restrictive add and drop deadlines. So you might need to get additional permission in order to actually add or drop another class. So definitely don't wait around. Try to get this sorted before you get here as much as possible, or before January 16th as much as possible. Does anyone else? Go ahead.
I'm looking at the academic calendar. By the way, if you Google academic calendar Colostate, that's a very good resource. So the last day of the census, the day that registration closes, is January 31st. So pretty soon. Mm-hmm.
The questions are coming in now. This is great. So one question here, when would be a good time to collect the RAM card from campus? I'll go ahead and respond to this. I just got some information. Because the Laurie Student Center is closed, there is a temporary RAM card office set up in a building called Durrell Center. And my understanding is they can issue the RAM cards before the Laurie Student Center reopens. So if you are on campus now, or you're here before the Laurie Student Center reopens, you can go to Durrell Center and you can go get your RAM card there. Another question here, should I wait to have my SSN to open my bank account? Do you have any advice on this?
No, because you don't need an SSN to open a bank account. FNBO and Canvas are both credit union banks that have offices on campus, and they're very familiar with working with international students. Usually, I'd have to look at the orientation schedule this year to see, but usually we have them present a session so that you could very easily set up a bank account with them, and they're not going to require an SSN. You don't need an SSN unless you're going to work.
Unfortunately, both the Canvas Credit Union and the First National Bank, they do have offices on campus at the Laurie Center. So at the very moment they are closed for the remodeling of the place, but they have branches very close to campus, and we hope to have them during orientation in some form to help you with the opening of an account.
Great, thank you. We've got a question here about OPT. Once I'm graduated and I'm on OPT, will this I-20 be valid? As you said that the I-20 is the main thing to stay in the US, so I just want to know if there are any other steps for keeping your I-20 valid while you're on OPT.
I can take that. So first thing is, when OPT is a benefit that every F1 student has. So you need to apply for that OPT, post-completion OPT, when you have a good idea of when you will be completing your program. While you are on OPT, your immigration status is still F1. And what happens is, if let's say your program completion date is still much into the future and you finish your program earlier, then we shorten that. We shorten that date to your actual completion date. And once you apply for practical training, we recommend you for practical training on page 2 of your I-20. So we do a reprint of that document, and that becomes your I-20 during OPT. This OPT process, and now is not the place, but I just want to say quickly, is there are 2 steps to that. So once you get that I-20 from us, you can request the benefit of OPT with USCIS, and they send you an EAD, a card that authorizes you for employment. So while you stay in the US on OPT, you will need that I-20 and you will need that EAD card. Also, if you travel and you want to re-enter, you will need that I-20 and that EAD. And the travel signature while you are on OPT is only valid for 6 months. And so keep that in mind as well.
We've got a question here about scholarships and tuition charges. So I think the general question is, when do scholarships get deducted from the bill? And is there a charge for each subject? So questions about sort of the tuition
Yeah.
payments.
I'm happy to talk about that. And I see that part of this question is also kind of tying in the I-20 and the scholarship disbursement. But just as a reminder, those are actually separate things. What funding you demonstrated to get the I-20 was really what we needed to be able to issue an I-20, because literally in the creation of a SEVIS record for you, we can't leave that information blank. We have to put that information there. It requires us to put the finances against the estimated expenses. And so that's really like, it's kind of a theoretical document. The I-20 is also a living document, so it can change over time. Whatever went on the I-20 is not necessarily how you're going to pay your bill. I guess, in other words, if you are relying on a scholarship and it's coming from CSU, you're going to want to look at CSU's Office of Financial Aid and then look at their scholarship disbursement date. Sometimes this is within the first several weeks of class. I think that's typically how it works. So your bill might be due within a time period, but as long as that does actually deduct according to the calendar when it says it's supposed to, then you're good. If you look at that, and I can pull it up and chime in a minute, but if you look and you think, oh, well, the date for disbursement according to the Office of Financial Aid was January 31st, just as an example, but now it's February 5th and the bill is due in a week. I want to make sure that this actually goes through. You can always, the financial aid office has walk-in hours. My experience is that they are harder to get a hold of by phone, unfortunately. I've been on hold with them for 45 minutes before. Hopefully they've hired more people. You can always give it a try and just see. But if you're actually on campus and around, going to their office during their office hours, they have walk-in hours, and I was seen in 15 minutes one time. So like really quick compared to the phone lines. So if you have any questions like that, they should be able to help you out. And I can go and confirm what that deadline is.
Also, if you type financial aid, one word, .colostate.edu/important dates, they do have a calendar. I just don't have a way to put in that in the chat, but financial aid colostate.edu/important-dates, and they have a good calendar throughout the semester about these disbursements and other things.
It looks like January 11th, but I think that's not for international students. But I mean, possibly as early as January 11th. It's saying, it says the earliest students may receive spring direct deposit refunds and bank accounts. No, that's going to require that you've already set up for that scholarship disbursement to be going to a personal bank account, and so you might have some, first work that you have to do in setting that up.
I've added the financial aid important dates in the chat if you all can access the chat. If you can't for some reason, like Laura said, you can just do a quick search and look on the financial aid website for those dates. Thank you. Daniel's got a question. He said, you have said that we have to have a new signature, a new travel signature every 12 months. Does that mean we just get a new signature on our current I-20, or do we get a completely new I-20?
I can answer that. So every time that we do a travel signature, that goes into your record, and technically it's called, we reprint your I-20 for that travel signature, and we send you the electronic document to the email account that you have registered with us, which is normally your CSU RAMS account. And so you do have to print it and sign it in ink. On page 1, at the bottom of page 1, there is an attestation that you have to, it's like a declaration, and you sign your name. And that is the I-20 that you take to your trip and to re-enter. The signature is on page 2.
I'll add that, again, the I-20 is kind of a living document, and it kind of depends on what the history of your record is, whether our office will choose to essentially create a new I-20. It'll have the same SEVIS ID, so it'll be the same record, but it'll just have that new travel signature, or whether we'll use the previous I-20 and just add a new travel signature to page 2. But if you get a new I-20 for a travel signature and you have any questions about us, feel free to respond to that email where you get the I-20 and ask those questions.
We have a question about, I think, related to online classes and programs. So
Yeah.
someone is asking, I have already been issued an F1 visa, and I am now planning to change from on-campus MCIS program to a hybrid model. Will my visa still be valid, or will there be any immigration issues next semester?
Yeah, so I think you're going to need to kind of really dig into the details of this and see what that hybrid model says, because if the hybrid model is not consistent with F1 regulations, COVID flexibilities for F1 students ended last year in May. So we're no longer under any kind of hybrid model for F1 students. We are back to in-person as the primary form of education. And so that means you get one class that can count towards your full-time enrollment each semester, and that's it. You can take additional online classes beyond that, but I know that the MCIS program is a master's program, and so it might not really be in the best idea to try and overload your course at your graduate course load just to try and take advantage of some kind of hybrid or online. The United States government's perspective is if you want to take something that's online, you can stay in your home country and do that. So I would say dig into the details of the hybrid model and see if that is consistent with the F1 regulations, which say you can only count one course. So if the hybrid model is actually like you're only doing one course in person and you're doing 2 courses remotely, then no, you're not going to be able to maintain status in the US, so you shouldn't even bother coming. Hopefully you're able to find out the details and make up your mind and choose which one is actually preferential to you, whether it's better to stay in your home country or to commit to the in-person program. But I definitely hope you'll get those details sooner rather than later, because yeah, it could be a really big issue.
All right. Abdullah asks, what should I do if I lose my I-20?
Yeah, you should definitely tell us, and we can issue a new one. If you suspect that it was stolen, you should also report it to the police. But if it was really just lost, then just tell us and we can issue a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very easy for us to issue new I-20s if you need them, so don't hesitate to ask us. We have a question here. Who can help me to register for a new class if my academic advisor is on a break?
I would say you still should reach out to some academic office, whether it is, if you are a graduate student, then there should be someone in your department able to help you in lieu of your advisor. Otherwise, you can always reach to the academic advising office here, and somebody else should be able to help you with that.
For example, undergraduates who are in general studies currently, you don't necessarily just have to see that one advisor. You can just go to their main page for that. I think it's exploratory studies advising, and find their main number or their main email to get routed to somebody who is available. And other majors at the undergraduate or at the graduate level, like Laura was saying, might also have additional people that you can talk to. It kind of depends on that specific department and how many people they have on staff.
Okay, we have a question here. Someone says that they are arriving after the orientation program next week. So they're arriving on January 10th, and they're concerned there might be a hold for people who do not attend those programs. What should we do about that? Do you all have advice? I can answer that question.
Go for it.
So the program next week, the in-person program, is we strongly recommend that you be there. We understand that some students may have situations that prevent them from arriving and participating in the in-person program. If that happens and you miss the program, you just need to make sure that you have completed the Canvas orientation module that Rochelle mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. That is ultimately the required component that will determine if you get a hold on your account or not. We also really strongly recommend that you go back and you watch any of the sessions that you may have missed, the recordings that we have on our website. Obviously, we're recording this session, but there are other sessions as well that will be recorded and posted on our website. But the Canvas orientation, the immigration orientation module, is what is required and what you will need to make sure to complete to avoid getting a hold on your account.
I'll add that if you'll accept advice from someone who has missed orientation when it was their time in college, I actually really regret missing that. It was a lot of information that I had to kind of scrap together on my own frantically at the moment that I needed it, instead of kind of getting that information ahead of time and then knowing kind of where I could start for that stuff. So as much of that information that you can get kind of offline by not being able to attend, if you really have to miss it, please make sure to take that time and do it, or else try and arrange something so that you can be there. Because once classes start, it's going to be so busy, you know. The next one is about residence halls. When will be assigned our residence halls? Where will we be notified? Can we request for early arrival before we are assigned one? John, do you know more information about this than me?
Yeah, so if you are planning to live on campus, you should have already applied before now. On-campus housing is relatively limited. So if you have not already applied, then I would recommend that you be looking for different places to live off campus. If you're an undergraduate student, you are guaranteed a place to live on campus, a new incoming undergraduate student. So you would need to apply for housing immediately. But if you're not and you haven't applied, you need to be looking off campus for other options. It's very late to be looking for housing options, the week before arriving. So I would suggest that if you're looking for off-campus housing options, contact our off-campus life office. We have some resources for off-campus housing options. We are not the housing experts. I'll admit that we defer to the Housing and Dining Services office, but you should have applied already. And if you're applying now, I think there's probably a chance you're not going to receive on-campus housing. Assignments for those who did already apply should be coming out this week or sometime early next week. And then if there's early arrivals, you can request through the housing portal after the assignments are announced. So again, I was sort of assuming that you hadn't already applied in that question. Maybe you have already applied, and if so, then the housing announcement should be coming soon.
Thank you. The next one is, if I'm in Fort Collins right now, can I go to obtain my RAM card from Durrell Center now, or should I wait for orientation? There usually is a session at orientation for getting the RAM cards, but if you're not seeing that on the schedule and you're around and you want to go get it, and Durrell is open for that, then you can go and get it right now if you want. I don't think it makes much of a difference one way or the other. The best thing you can do for yourself either way is to start memorizing your CSU ID now, or just make sure it's like tucked in your wallet somewhere that you'll bring it with you everywhere, because that's generally the sort of information that is easiest to identify you on campus for those things that you're going to need until you get the RAM card. Of course, you're going to need that. Any other thoughts on that?
It looks like that's all the we have another question here. We've got about 3 more minutes, so if you have any last questions, please submit them now. Someone is asking, what is the process if hybrid student visa got rejected?
I think you might want to reach out to our office because I don't have enough information to really advise on that. Just because, again, CSU is no longer, as far as F1s are concerned, F1 international student policies. Like, I mean, it kind of depends on your definition of hybrid. That's part of the problem. Is that hybrid is such an open word, a vague word. So if someone's program is not very clear that it's going to be predominantly an in-person program, then they're not going to get an F1 visa. And that's kind of expected. So definitely, if your visa has gotten rejected or you're concerned about that, please reach out to our office and give us some specific details so we can help out. It's a good question. Thanks for asking.
Great. Last question here is from Keith. Keith asks, do we have to meet in person with the person who issued our I-20?
No. Actually, you will find that if you stay here long enough and apply for travel signatures, there are lots of advisors on board here. You have met Alan and John and Rochelle. There is also Christy, in addition to me, and then there is Melinda, who also signs I-20s, so no.
And I do think I know where this question is coming from, and good on you for like really reading closely. But there is language that says, and this is from like, you know, more than like decades ago, right? When these international student regulations were first written and everything was by paper, like, you know, before computers were even used. Like a lot of times I've seen like past I-20s that were like typewritten almost, some of the information. And back then the idea was like, yeah, you did need to report in person to the school that was issuing your I-20. And so you did have to show up in person. But not only has the pandemic happened, a lot of other technological advances have made it so that we're able to confirm that you've reported to the school by way of, so we determine that when you submit IDR, the Immigration Document Review. So make sure you do that as well. You should have gotten an email about that. Make sure you complete that. You won't be able to complete it until you're actually in the US though. But once you are in the US, go ahead and submit that. And that's how we'll confirm that you've reported to us. So it's a good question.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. You asked wonderful questions. Thank you to Laura and Rochelle, especially for answering so many of those questions, and for Alan for answering them in the chat as well. We're so excited for you to be joining us, and we're here to help you. So if you have any questions, please let us know, and we're looking forward to seeing you all at orientation next week.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.